Awesome. Well, thanks for joining us. This is our third Inside Earth Expedition session where we're going to cover some behind the scenes information and additional sort of stories, learn more about the activities of four of our Earth Expeditions courses. We'll focus on our Australia, India, Paraguay, and Thailand classes. I'm Jill Korach from the Project Dragonfly team, and thanks for joining us. We're going to use the chat as a space for asking questions. So please, if you haven't already, say hello to the group there by introducing yourself. If you have questions that come up, please post them in the chat. We'll do our best to answer them there. And if you have tips, because some of you are current students who have taken some of these classes before, but maybe not them all, feel free to share that in the chat as well. So we're hoping for a nice, enjoyable session to talk about these awesome courses and locations. I'm going to start generally here first, though, to remind you that Earth Expeditions courses can be taken as standalone graduate credit courses. So you can do that as a 5-credit summer class. That typically sequence moves from April through August with about an 8 to 10 day in-person experience, and then you're doing the rest online. There's also an optional 2-credit course that you can take in the fall semester, depending on what master's program you're in. And you can earn these credits toward the master's degree. 5 to 21 credits can count towards your degree, depending on which program you're in. For this year, the course costs are $3,600, and then there may be an additional fee associated with the courses, depending on which one you ended up getting a placement in, and you can check that information on our webpage. But generally speaking, that amount covers your 5 graduate credits, so the tuition, as well as your meals, your lodging, transportation, any of the activities that we're doing during the course, and then any personal expenses would be on your own. So that's an inclusive cost. We have partnerships in 16 different countries now with our Project Dragonfly programs. They're listed here on this map. The red dot for the Bahamas is our only course that we offer in the winter term. Otherwise, all the rest of these locations are offered in the summer term. So sometime with traveling in June, July, or August. And you can see there's a wide variety of themes in terms of the courses that we offer, everything from field methods to steppe ecology and civic media in Mongolia. So we have a lot of different options here working directly with local partners in each one of those places. So we took a moment to look back at the field reflections that students have written in the past, and we're able to code that information and saw some really neat themes that students mentioned the most in terms of what they get out of these courses. So a chance to really have true nature connections. I don't know about you all, but I don't tend to get to spend all day, every day outside. But in many cases, these Earth expeditions offer you that chance to truly spend time in nature, to get a chance to learn more about yourself and to build community is a big takeaway for most students who participate in the courses. Really getting to kind of grow, think about your own perspectives, changing your own perspectives, and also thinking about how to grow with other conservationists. So sometimes we walk in thinking, I'm not a scientist, I'm not someone who knows how to collect data and information, and we have opportunities to kind of break some of those preconceived notions that we have about ourselves and others. And it's a big space for overcoming fears, fears of being in a group setting, of not being the right kind of fit for the program. And it's really neat to see how many different types of people from different backgrounds, different experiences, how long they've been in their workplace, all kind of coming together in this learning space. So it's really a chance to be able to kind of get inspired, get rejuvenated, refreshed on how to really make positive social, ecological change out there in the world. So it's fun to get that opportunity to do this together. In terms of preparations, again, these come directly from students and past participants. Coming in with an open-hearted, accepting attitude, right? You're not going to know exactly what's around each corner. The schedule may change. The partners may have a new idea or a new meal that they want to serve you, and you've never tried that food before, right? So kind of walking in and just seeing if we can be in that awareness and that space together to kind of take on these new ideas that we're learning. Focusing on simple living and bringing less stuff. You will be happy if you do not have to lug around a big piece of luggage. So the fewer things, the better, but having what you need, sort of a one of everything kind of approach, can really help you to keep that part of your life more simple during the field course, since a lot of other things will be very new. Reading your course readings is actually one of the best ways to prepare, because those ideas will be so present for you in the field. You're getting chances to meet the conservationists who wrote these articles. You're in a space where you're with people from Project Dragonfly who are the leaders in a lot of the inquiry-driven science that's happening out there in the world. And so being ready to be part of that academic conversation, being ready to journal, writing down your ideas. So on this slide, we also have some of the must-haves that people talk about in terms of what to pack. We will certainly offer you the expedition planner, which is a document that kind of gives you all you need to know on what to bring to each one of these specific locations. But generally speaking, a couple of water bottles and snacks are great to have, because everybody's on a slightly different time zone and having different needs that way. Having your journal, some pens, even colored pencils can be a fun space. Watercolors to bring with you, and just be able to kind of take in a new way to maybe process the natural environment that you're experiencing. People like to have a small set of binoculars with them to be able to see things more closely. We share with you these yellow tags, which you'll see on the slide. That is Katie Filan, our director there. She's carrying her backpack. She's got her water bottle. She's got her yellow tag on the backpack. So this is sort of a typical Earth Expeditions moment that you might see on our courses. And they're doing some work in Brazil looking at golden lion tamarins in that picture. In the next picture over, you see a lot of smiley people in the rain. So the rain can be amazing, particularly when we come kind of all weather ready. So having with you rain gear, hat, sunglasses, a small travel umbrella can be really useful, so that you can just kind of pop that up when you need to. And sunscreen is really key on all of our courses for the amount of time that we spend outside. Variety of clothing, as I mentioned before. Sturdy walking shoes and sandals are both really useful on the courses in terms of footwear. A small first aid kit that has things like cold medicine, even an ankle wrap, if that's, these are unplanned moments, right, that a first aid kit is for. So having a few of those items with you in your own bag can be really useful. And we have some tips on what would be in that small kit. And then some pictures from home. Sometimes we just get homesick, and having those on your phone, or being able to show a friend in a new place some of your places from home, can be a really nice way to connect kind of when you're in the field. So having those good vibes and being ready with your bag packed, but not with too much stuff. So on a typical day, we do a lot of things. We wake up early, typically have breakfast, go out for an activity, come back maybe for lunch to wherever our home base is. Again, out for activities for the afternoon. But you can see in this picture, obviously someone ready with their sunscreen, having discussions. You can see a couple groups here that are amidst group discussions, learning about a place, or having a further conversation about some of the course themes. Picture at the top, these guys are coming back from a snorkel experience. So having their gear, you can see a lot of people have sun protection sort of in those spaces as well. And then in the upper right, these students are actually extracting a sea turtle nest in Costa Rica. So they're participating in active research that's happening on the ground in that place. So that very well might be part of your Earth Expeditions Day. And that bottom center picture is really, we get a lot of time in really, really beautiful natural places. We try to take time to reflect, to journal, to just take it in, because this is really kind of some of the most special aspects of the courses, are these really incredible places that we get to visit, and the partners that we get to visit in those spaces with. So in the back of the boat picture there is one of our key partners for our Belize course. We're getting time directly one-on-one with these partners in these really interesting global locations to hear about their conservation work. So we're going to go deeper now into each of the course locations. And I'm going to turn it over to Jamie Burkott-Anzano, who's going to talk to us about the Australia course.
Hi, everybody. Can you hear me okay? Thumbs up? All right, thanks. I'm Jamie Burkott-Anzano, as Jill just said. I am an instructor and an advisor at Project Dragonfly, and have been at the project for many years. It's been a wonderful journey. 2 years ago, I've instructed a number of our classes, not quite as many as Jill, but I've instructed a few of them. And a couple of years ago, I was lucky enough to instruct our Australia class. And then again last year, I instructed our Australia class for a second time. A number of years ago, I spent the summer there traveling around before graduate school. So I was really excited to get back, and it did not disappoint. Um, the first picture that you see here is off the front of the boat on one of our reef excursions. And you can see the reef, sort of the darker colors of the reef out in front of the boat. It's just gorgeous. But one of the things I wanted to mention is that it's the reef is about the reef itself, obviously, but the terrestrial components um, of the affectations of the terrestrial environment on the reef. So the combination is really what this class is about. So it's not like you're on a boat every single day. You're learning about all kinds of things in a lot of different locations. Um, Jill, if you could go to the next slide, please. One of the first places that we go to is off of the coast of the eastern coast of Australia, called Magnetic Island. Off of Townsville is the name of the town that you sort of jut off from and travel out on a boat to Magnetic Island. In the past, we've been lucky enough to see koalas in the wild, which has been incredibly exciting, and wallabies and koalas on the upper left-hand side, wallabies on the upper right on Magnetic Island. And as Jill said, there's just so much beauty that you're always interacting with and experiencing. And at one point, we go to a butterfly garden. In the lower left-hand corner, we're having a discussion on a beach on Magnetic Island. And there are about 3 opportunities, full day opportunities for snorkeling out on the reef. But you do have to keep in mind that it is weather dependent. So what's happening in the lower left-hand side on one of the classes that I instructed, we were unfortunately unable to go out to the reef on one occasion, and we had a wonderful discussion and day. So know that wonderful things will still happen even if you don't get to travel out on the reef for weather because of the weather at some point or another. But in the center bottom there, we have some students out on the reef experiencing the incredible beauty and wonder and color of the reef. And then on Magnetic Island is the bottom right-hand corner. We go to a little bay there and learn the instructors, the in-country partners and facilitators are just incredibly knowledgeable and wonderful people, and are with us for a lot of the experience, and they're just incredible. The whole experience is really cool. You can go to the next slide, Jill. And about a few days in, after we've had an experience on the reef, we travel to a place called Hidden Valley, and it's up, 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 up. I'm not sure you call it a mountain, but a really big hill anyway. And in the upper left-hand corner, Jill was talking about journaling, and in particular, taking colored pencils. And this particular student had watercolors with her, and she did all sorts of amazing um, uh, drew all sorts of amazing pictures with her pencils and her watercolors. So it really is, it really is cool. Even if you don't have very much background in art, it really is cool to be able to do that. In Hidden Valley, we had a sound bathing experience with some local indigenous folks, which was really interesting and wonderful. And then we go to a place called Mangala Station, and we interact with some Aboriginal folks there and learn about what they're doing to reclaim their land and their territories around that feed into the reef. And you can see on a platypus in an Aboriginal painting. I think that's a shaker. And then a couple more pictures of the reef. These were from this past summer. You can go ahead, Jill. So the climate is pretty wonderful, 60 to 75 degrees Fahrenheit. I wear pants and generally a sweatshirt all the time or t-shirt. And it's definitely colder in Hidden Valley, which I think some students are sort of surprised by. So that's, and it is winter in Australia during this time period, and it can be really cold on the boats. So you want to take some warm clothes with you. It's a moderate activity level. There's, of course, a fair amount of swimming. We do have wetsuits, so you don't get too cold in the water, and a lot of walking. We do transport ourselves by foot to a lot of different locations, lodging and bathrooms, 2 to 4 people per room. It's hotels and cabins, so pretty first world bathroom and room experiences. It's really similar to, the food is really similar to our food. A couple pictures of fish and chips there, and I think some macaroni, and oh, and they're really good about accommodating vegans and vegetarians there too. That's a vegan sausage there on the left on the plate. So bus, boat, and walking are the main modes of transportation in Australia. And so that's a bit about Australia. I guess we'll go on to the next country.
Thank you, Jamie. I'll take a quick second there. Any questions that anyone wants to ask by voice or post in the chat, please feel free. Great. Then we'll move on to our India course, and I'll turn it over to Laura.
Hi, everyone. I'm Laura Sinnott Houston, and I'm going to share about the India course. Last year was actually my first time instructing the India course, and I had instructed quite a few other courses in previous years. I've been part of the Project Dragonfly team for a while, and India was always a place that I really wanted to go. So when Jill approached me about instructing there, I was so excited. My first reaction was real, just jumped out of my chair excited. But then that followed between all you and I with some nervousness. I think that a lot of people, when they find out they're going to India, feel a little bit nervous about traveling with a different culture to the other side of the world, different food and customs. And I will tell you that the travel ended up being a lot smoother than I had anticipated. It was beautiful. It was such an amazing EE experience. And I just came home and just immediately wanted to go back. So I had a great time. So I know a lot of people who I've said, oh, I did the India EE, and they'll say something about oh, I'd really like to do that, but it might be a little out of my comfort zone. So I'd really encourage you, if you're feeling that way, you're not alone, but still to consider it, because I found it to be a really warm and welcoming place to travel. Jill, could you go to the next slide? Thanks. So in India, we are working with our in-country partner, AERF, which is the Applied Environmental Research Foundation. And we work with them throughout the course. We have members of the team with us at all times. And they are able to show us so many really amazing parts of India. It almost sort of feels like we are on, I know this is the EE behind the scenes, but in country in India, it sort of feels like we are the behind the scenes of India. That we are going to places that maybe don't have a lot of tourists. We are getting to meet with people that just as a typical traveler, you might not get the experience to meet with. So we travel to a lot of sacred groves. And so these are places that are conserved by local communities, and they have a spiritual component to them. We look at the Hindu practices and why they conserve these areas. We also get to meet with members of local communities. There were numerous times when I just found myself oh, we're going to go into this person's home and they've made us some chai, and oh, can I use your bathroom? And it just feels very, very personal. And again, just very warm and welcoming. That was just that personal, intimate touch of this course, I thought is really special. We get to share people's culture. They talk openly about their beliefs and how their spirituality combines with their desire to conserve in their area. So in this slide, you can see us with a group of school children. So we did get to visit one of the secret groves was near a school, and actually a bit spontaneously, we were able to just go and visit the school, which was really fun. I think for everybody, the kids liked that. We went and like kind of interrupted their day a little bit and brought a little excitement. And we, of course, were so interested, since a lot of us were teachers, to see the school. You can see us in the bottom middle there with a giant tree and a sacred grove, just kind of being in awe of that space. And then in the upper left, we are at a cave temple, and we were taking a group picture. And then if you can see, it's kind of small, but in the upper right of that picture, there is a monkey who is wanting to join our picture, which is always welcome. Jill, if you could go to the next slide. We do get the opportunity to do some work as well. So we work on some of the projects with AERF. So on a couple of days, we get the chance to go to some of their reforestation projects. We get to dig in the dirt, plant some trees. One day we got to work in a greenhouse, and we're just working alongside the members of the team and helping them with their efforts, which we all liked. It's kind of fun to get to jump in, and sometimes you go places and you're like, I'd really like to be able to help. Is there something I can do? And it's pretty cool when they're like, yeah, here's a shovel and a tree, and let's get to work. So we did that. Jill, if you could go to the next slide. All right. So just to talk a little bit about the particulars, the climate. When we are traveling to India, we are just at the beginning of the monsoon season. And this was another thing that had me a little nervous. Like, I think monsoon as an American, I just think rain, and it maybe doesn't, it initially didn't make me like joyful. But then we got to India, and people there, our partners, were talking about the rain, and they were talking about it with like real excitement. Like, the rains are coming, the rain is starting. And at first it was starting small, and we did get like some big monsoon days at the end, and they were so excited. It's kind of, I'm in Ohio, and it's kind of like if we get snow at Christmas time. So the weather is warm. It wasn't super hot. And then the rains they're just such a welcome experience for our partners. And I really found myself enjoying them. You do want to be prepared for the rain. So, we pack an umbrella and a raincoat and shoes that can just let the water out. And as long as you're prepared, we really, I think, in our group had a pretty awesome experience with the rain. And it felt like a good way to connect with our partners. Activity level, there is some hiking and uphill walking. So I'd say like a moderate amount of activity level there. And then we do the tree planting, which was fairly physical, but there's a lot of jobs with that activity or with those activities. So we could rotate around and get a job that everybody felt comfortable doing. With lodging and bathrooms, there were like 2 to 3 people per room with an attached bathroom. I thought the accommodations were, they felt familiar to what an American would be used to seeing. There are throughout India different types of bathroom situations. Some you might be squatting, but where we were staying, there were Western style bathrooms. The food was wonderful. I'm a vegetarian and felt like I was in heaven because like everything, nearly everything was vegetarian. They would prepare some meat dishes as well if that was what you preferred. And the spice level was adjusted to accommodate our group. They were very conscious about this because we are not all used to eating, super spicy food all the time. And so I think that people felt good eating the food. We, tried a little spice. We had good flavor in the food, but it was tolerable for our palates. Transportation, once we got to Pune, which is where we met up with the group, most people flew into that location. We did travel by bus. You can see the bus in the lower right of the slide, and that they were doing a blessing of the bus before we left on our first day of travel. And it worked. We had great travel. We saw a lot from the bus, which was a fun part of it. And then I hadn't pointed out, but on the upper right of the slide is one of the hikes that we took. So you can see we are traveling uphill. There is some like rocky terrain, but generally pretty good surface for hiking on. All right. I think that's what I wanted to be sure I shared, but I know I couldn't read the questions. Jill, were there questions that I should answer?
I think we were
one
able to answer most of them flying in and out of Pune, India. I was wondering if you could talk a tiny bit more about the rain. How did you manage those days when it was raining?
Yeah. So I really did develop such an appreciation for the rain. So the rain started off pretty gentle at the beginning, where we might have some showers throughout the day. And then we did have maybe 2 or 3 days that they called elephant rain. So in India, they had different terms for the different levels of rain. Like we might say drizzle or storm, but they called it an elephant rain. Some days we did just get wet through our activities, even if we were wearing a raincoat and that sort of thing, but we would maybe be out and about, we got a little wet, and then we would come back to our lodging and get nice and dry. And then, kind of change into like a nighttime dry outfit. So the temperature wise, it's nice and warm, so we didn't feel cold. In fact, if I thought it was kind of nice because it kept us from getting too hot. So raincoats are definitely a must. Umbrella. And then I noticed in India, people would wear like Croc style shoes. They sort of didn't even worry about any type of waterproof footwear because they just knew that they were going to get wet. So they would wear shoes that were just, would dry easily. And the rain just kind of flowed out of them. So a lot of sandals and Crocs were great for that.
How about the humidity?
So I think, a lot of times it's relative. I really felt like I can be a little sensitive to the humidity. I'm from Southwest Ohio, which does get pretty humid in the summer. So I am used to some humidity, but I didn't think it was not as humid as like I've taught the Costa Rica course a lot. Maybe not as humid as that, but I think again, like the rain kind of kept us cool. We also, some of the days are in a little bit more elevation, and that kept the temperature nice. So I do remember one afternoon saying, I'm a little bit chilly, and that was welcome.
Great, Laura. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Let me know if you have questions.
Excellent. Thank you. We're going to turn next to our Paraguay class, and Carrie is going to take us through that course.
All right. Thank you. So like Jill said, my name's Carrie. I am a graduate of the Advanced Inquiry Program. I graduated in 2015. I live in Ohio. I partnered with the Cincinnati Zoo. In the last 3 years, I've had the chance to be the community learning leader for the Paraguay course. So the Paraguay course, we partner with a nonprofit called Para La Tierra. It is a nonprofit that focuses on scientific research, environmental education, and community engagement in indigenous, rural, and urban communities. So it's very, in terms of their impact and their reach, it's really broad. And we have the chance to kind of be a part of that, along the way. kind of interesting, Paralatier was actually founded by a graduate of GFP. So Karina Atkinson founded it in 2010, which also makes this course a little different, as this is a relatively young conservation organization. Karina has since moved on, but PLT has a great team that's really been deeply committed to supporting the next generation of conservation and education leaders within Paraguay. Next slide, please. All right, so the Paraguay course is kind of divided into two parts. So for the first half of the course, we are in the Atlantic Forest, which is on the east side of the country. And I guess I didn't explain it to most people when I say, yeah, I was in Paraguay. They have a general idea that Paraguay probably is in Central America, maybe it's in South America. And to be quite honest with you, when I first got assigned to this course, I had to look at a map. So Paraguay is in Central South America. It's landlocked, and it's not generally a huge tourist destination. But it's a beautiful country. There's a lot of great things that are happening there with Paralatiera. Here in all the pictures that you see here are taken in the first half of the course in the Atlantic Forest, which is a very unique habitat, and it was once quite extensive, part of the eastern part of Paraguay, along with Brazil. But there's been threats mainly from agricultural development, and the region has shrunk, but it's still a biodiversity hotspot. So while we're there, we stay at a field station called Procasera. You can see a picture of that in the bottom left-hand corner. So the room that you see there actually is our classroom. It is our dining room, and it is also the dormitory. So it's also where we sleep. So in the evening, mattresses come out, and that's where we sleep. For this course, you do have to bring a sleeping bag. So the mattresses are provided, but you do need a sleeping bag. And the second half of the course, we'll get to that, but for that one, you're provided linens. So while we are in the Atlantic Forest, we participate in a variety of field conservation, a variety of sites. You can see some of the different activities that are done there. And there's all kinds of unique flora and fauna in the area. I know I am a plant person, and the plant life there is, I kept on trying to identify things like, oh, this is this and this is this, but it's just a whole different world down there, which is fantastic. So lots of new things to see. So in addition to those field experiences, we also visit some schools, so some indigenous communities. And in some of these communities, it took PLT years to gain trust in order to be invited in. And Project Dragonfly students actually were the first outside group to be invited into these communities. So that's a true honor, and makes for a very impactful experience. Next slide, please. So the second half of the trip, we travel west to the western side of the country, and we are in Pilar. Pilar is known as the city of birds. It's a beautiful city. It's just a beautiful community. It's along the Paraguay River, and it's surrounded by a network of marshes, streams, and lakes. And there's really a deep tradition of nature appreciation there within the city. Pilar is also where Paralatiera's headquarters is located. So you can see the bottom right-hand picture. That is within their headquarters building, and that is our classroom while we're there. But while we're there, we're also interacting a lot with the community. So you can see on the top right, we lead an eco club, so we get to interact with the students. We also do some field work, which you can see in the top left. And then the bottom left, Paralatiera actually is a museum as well. So they house one of the most significant reference collections in the entire country of Paraguay. So students have the chance to assist with categorizing specimens, as well as some specimen preparation, if that's something that you're interested in. And last slide, please. All right. In terms of climate, it is quite variable. So during the day, it can be in the 80s. At night, it can be as low as the 40s. And especially that first half of the trip, the building that we're in is not heated. You know, a medium weight sleeping bag is usually enough. But like all these courses, the key is layers. So layering up so that you can take layers off when it warms up during the day. The activity level is mild to moderate. While we're in the Atlantic forest, there are some moderate hikes, some walking, but I think maybe compared to some of the other Earth expeditions, the activity level is a little bit more mild. For lodging, like I said, the first half of the trip, we're in that shared open space with mattresses, and then there's a bathroom block with flushing toilets and running water. And then the second half is more of a dorm style. And we have roommates and shared bathrooms. The food there is delicious. It's a very much a meat and potatoes type country. But that being said, they do a great job of accommodating folks with dietary restrictions and transportation. There are several long van rides between sites. So the first day is the traveling to Atlantic Forest, which is probably the longest ride, and then to the western side of the country when we go to Pilar. But yeah, I definitely encourage you to look into this one. It's a kind of a hidden jewel. It's a fantastic place, and it definitely has a place in my heart now. Were there any questions I could answer?
Awesome, Carrie. Thank you. There's nothing in the chat right now. I do think that, as Carrie mentioned, this is a little traveled location in the world. There are very few people that have actually sort of traveled into Paraguay. So it's sort of a really neat opportunity to do that in such a personal way through an organization. So thanks for sharing all that. Those were great chances to think about what those experiences are like.
Thank you.
Yeah, awesome. And I was cold there. I wore a lot of layers and that made me happier. But I think the idea that we condition all our spaces, typically, I know I live in Ohio, USA, so we are just like always conditioning things to the perfect temperature. But I was surprised by the idea of when you don't heat the space, how much different that can feel when it's chilly outside. So being prepared seems like a very good advice there. I'm going to move us to our last class here, which is our Thailand course. To that slide here. So this class is focused on Buddhism and conservation. This is a class where we get excellent opportunities, as each of our presenters have described, to be in really beautiful outdoor spaces. And the nice thing is we're thinking about conservation. We are also considering mindfulness practices and sort of how Buddhism comes into play in that setting as well. So this is a picture of a really nice long hike that we get an opportunity to take. And you're hearing the grass blowing and the breeze and the sky are all really beautiful. And then I'll talk to you about the two course locations kind of that we spend the most time for the course. But I think it's really special to be in a place and then also to layer on these mindfulness and contemplative practices. It just sort of adds a really interesting and unique element to the course that we can certainly use in any class, but we really try to highlight it here in this course. So we traveled to two locations, the first of which is Khao Yai National Park. This is a well-visited park. People are driving in and out with cars. It's very much like a national park would be in the United States. There's at times traffic, so it feels a little disparate from our nature experiences that we have, but we settle into a group kind of camping lodge facility where we're sharing rooms of 2 to 3 people per room with bathroom. But then there's also a dorm style room that we tend to use as well. And we have the whole building. And then maybe there are 2, 3, 4 people per room with shared bathrooms. That's what the picture in the bottom left there. And we have opportunities to do all kinds of things over even just what are like 2.5 days of being in this location. So you can see there that gorgeous picture of a hornbill. The group that's down there on the bottom central part of the slide is out with one of several hornbill researchers that will meet. So they're all kind of cricking their necks to try to see a nesting site for the hornbills. we get a chance to walk through the forest and just see what we can see. And one of the neatest things about the researchers is they talk a lot about how their mindfulness practices, their Buddhist practices, are what help them sit in the forest for long periods and just wait, right? Because a lot of nature observation is actually not seeing the thing that you're waiting to see. And so having some room to think about what it's like to be a researcher in that space and be able to walk out with them is really very special. In the bottom right there, a student is taking some natural observation data in a really nice trail that's within the park. As are many of our national parks in the US, people tend to just visit those central places and they don't even really get off the trails very much. So here we are one of a trail that's actually not far from the visitor center, but there are very few people on it because most people kind of visit the visitor center and then go. So these students are taking some inquiry investigations in that space. And we're also getting time to again, do some of those quiet sit spot practices in nature. And you can see the inset box there is just a really beautiful little orchid. So we try to kind of take our time and see the natural environment in that space. And then we shift for the second half of the course to a really incredible forest monastery. This is not a place that people are typically invited. As several of the presenters mentioned, Carrie mentioned communities that really don't get to meet outsiders. And so many people visit this site, but I think groups are typically not invited other than really kind of monks and other sort of holy people that are coming into that space. So the abbot, or kind of the lead of the monastery, is Prapaisan Visalo, who's there in the center part of the slide in the robes. And the person next to him is Vichai is his name, and he does a lot of art with youth, really getting them into conservation. He runs a youth bird club where the kids are going out and doing birding observations. And he has really been, since being a child, has grown up with the monastery. So we just get to sort of see the promotion of monastic life and how it can actually have this really important influence on conservation, on green practices. So we'll get opportunities to do several different things. We do a rice planting with the local community there, who are really working on organic local practices for rice farming, because it can tend to be fairly chemical and high labor. So trying to really sort of work out these practices that can be a bit more environmentally friendly. In the bottom right there, we're having a lesson on some of the different types of rice. And the inset box there is Prapaisan's book. So it's a little book that's required to purchase for the course. And it's actually the first lecture that he gave on the very first Earth Expeditions course. And it was put together into a book style format for us to read. He has some really neat simple awareness practices. I think this is much more a part of our discussions now, right? People talk about mindful breathing and taking breaks and even walking meditation. The person in the upper right is doing some walking meditation. And so I think it's at least not so mystical anymore, because it's much more a bit mainstream, but we're just getting chances to practice so we can be in a quiet space where we are thinking about what it's like to kind of have that more contemplative life. And then we're discussing how can we bring that back to our busy home life and all the places that we try to go and be. How can we still be aware in those spaces? Some of the other practices that the monks do that are really interesting in terms of civic action, the bottom left there is a tree that's actually been wrapped in that same color of the robes that the monks wear, with this idea of almost this tree is an elder in our community. We would never cut this tree, right? This is one of us. And so that idea that there are many different ways to help people sort of see the connections and the importance in nature, and that's just sort of one. So the group had a lot of fun with the rice planting. I'm showing you them clean, but you are actually taking off your shoes and you're stepping down in the mud and you are planting. Typically there's local kids and local community members joining us. And even when we don't share a language, there's really a lot of just sharing that happens in those spaces. That's really a lot of fun. There's a whole campaign in Thailand that's just simply smile. And it's kind of incredible when you actually spend your time that way to realize like you can really kind of bring that joy and happiness even into these hard moments when we're working hard to plant a field. In terms of some of the ideas around the climate, it is hot and humid. You are mostly warm on this course. I will say the Khao Yai, the first portion of the course, can have a little bit of chilliness to the mornings, but typically it's fairly hot and humid. It can be sunny, it can be rainy at any given moment. So having kind of your all-weather gear is really useful. Activity level, I'd say, is kind of in the middle, as maybe others have described. There are some longer hikes. None of them are really very quick, so you don't have to be going very quickly on those walks. But we are walking daily kind of to and from where we stay, particularly Khao Yai. We're kind of going up and down a road to get back and forth between where we eat and where we sleep. Lodging, as I said, about 2 to 4 per room in each of our locations. It's a dorm style in Khao Yai. At the monastery, it's typically 2 people per room, and they sort of sort us out when we get there into all these little huts that are just kind of tucked into the forest throughout the site. And we have shared bathrooms that are typically attached to those rooms. So you're not having to kind of walk somewhere to be able to go to the bathroom. It is Thai food, y'all, and it's incredible. It's made by local community members that are there. I'm seeing some smiles for people who have been there before. There are tremendous number of veggie options. Gluten-free is quite easy. They typically want to introduce us to global cuisines. So they might be having us try tropical fruits or other juices that they're creating. It's really a lot of fun for the cooks and the chefs as well. They love having kind of an outside group to introduce all these lovely flavors to. There tends to be coffee or tea at most times, little cookie here and there that they kind of incorporate in. So it's very nice for the food throughout the course. When we transport, we're on a big, comfortable kind of Greyhound style bus when we're on the longer rides. And then in the bottom left there is a Song Tao, which is an open air, 2-benched bus that we ride in. And so that might take us to one of the field sites that we're going to. So not quite as far, but it's nice for sightseeing out the window. You can see one of our students and our 2 Thai partners are standing on the back. So sometimes you can kind of stand on the back and get a little breeze when we're driving pretty slowly. Pictures of the food. And then you can see in the right-hand picture there, I circled, that person is wearing leech socks. So these are this really interesting idea where you've already put on your pants and your socks, and then you pull over top of that this giant, almost stocking-like, that you can see there on the right, piece of material, and then you put your shoes on over it. It's very stylish, and it helps to sort of ensure that those little land leeches, which are really not that big of a deal, but we do try to keep them out. So if we can keep them out of our feet, we really appreciate that. This is a site where people wear very modest clothing. They don't wear tight clothing at all. So you would wear sort of loose, baggy things, pants and shirts. And it's actually quite comfortable in a hot and humid environment to sort of be dressed that way. People don't wear shorts, and they don't wear sleeveless shirts. So you're sort of wearing at least a long sleeve or a long or short sleeve shirt, and typically kind of capri style past the knees or longer pants. So packing is pretty easy for this trip if you sort of bring all the right things. And I think this is one of all of these 4 courses that we just discussed, there are just so many elements that are so unique in each one of these classes. So this is really quite a treat to talk about all 4 of these in one call. I see a question about sleeping bags. So yeah, when we stay at the monastery, it's actually quite variable in terms of what room we have. You don't need to bring a sleeping bag with you. They actually have a room that has all of these blankets that you can kind of stack up and make yourself sort of a princess bed on the floor. You may be sleeping on the floor. You might be sleeping on a wooden frame of a bed, but with no mattress. And then you're building the mattress sort of with the blankets at the monastery, or it may be that there is a mattress in your room. So they're all a little bit different. And I have found that I actually sleep quite well that way. It's supposed to be really good for your back. To sleep on a harder surface like that. So you can just keep building up blankets. My first night, I did not have enough blankets. So then I just went back to the blanket room and got a few more. So you don't have to worry with sleeping bag space in your bag for this trip. You could also, a lot of people on any of these courses like to bring sort of a thin sleeping sack kind of style, which is almost like a sheet folded in half, that can be really nice to just have as an extra layer if it's something that you want to have with you. So that's kind of about our Thailand class. And I wanted to end here, and then we can certainly answer more questions as you'd like. But, you know, that idea that if you're a current student, your current requests for the summer are due on November the 11th. So please get those in and we'll start reviewing them. If you're a new student or you're an alumni, your applications are due January the 15th. So all of our web pages are listed down here. You can feel free to email us. We're happy to answer questions. And this is just kind of a look of a group who's sort of hanging out after the end of the day in Belize for our courses. And I think the community aspect of just having time with kind of other conservation-minded people in these places. I think Laura, Jamie, and Carrie really outlined a lot of those wonderful benefits of what we have from our Earth Expedition courses. So we'll hang out here for a minute. If there's additional questions, feel free. But thank you so much for joining us tonight. If you need to log off, have a good evening.
Thanks, everyone. This was really cool.
Great. Thanks for being here.
Bye.
Bye. For new students, when can we expect our decision letters? That's a great question. We tend to start to review those application materials right away, and we share that we'll get back to you by March 15th, though we do try to do that as soon as we can. So sometimes we have been a little earlier than that date, but that's a good date to plan for. Great. Thanks for joining us. Have a good evening.